I'm going to do a couple of small upgrades and repairs to the old wildlife truck here. One of the small repairs is one of these cheap lenses for the side mirror and a bulb. I was driving on a back road going to pick up an old Mustang, and some lady in an Escalade crossed the yellow line and her mirror hit my mirror, and this thing slammed shut like that. But it still works. That's all the damage there was. Still works, the mirror works, but it busted the lens. I saw her in town a few days later and her mirror was completely gone. It was not a foldable one like that. This is just a cheap Chinese garbage. It was like $7 for 2 of them, and then I got a couple of bulbs. The other thing I'm going to do is put this Kenwood head unit in. This is an older unit that came out of one of the other trucks, the silver truck I just fixed, and it was working fine, but the wiring was an absolute hack job. It had these big wires hanging down on the floor, and this bazooka subwoofer loosely in there, and there was some small amp hanging out in the glove box. The glove box wouldn't shut all the way, so I just put a factory radio in and took it back to stock. I've got an AM/FM radio in this truck. This is a base model, so there's nothing in here. The upgrades had a CD player and then an aux port in this little spot right there, and this works. And I don't really listen to music that often. It's usually audiobooks or podcasts or whatever, but I want to put that in there for the GPS. If I'm looking up and I look down at my phone where I keep in the cup holder here, and then have to look back up, if I swerve slightly, the back of the trailer is always, much further. So any small adjustment up here at the helm is amplified in the back. So if I look up here to there, it's probably safer than looking up there, up here, all the way down here. And yes, I can hold my phone up here, but I don't do that. Also, being AM/FM, I've got no way to hook up my phone so I can listen to music, podcasts, etc. So the way this works, being older, it's got this USB cord kind of built into it. And I've got this from another truck that sits right down here where that panel goes. Mine's blank because it's a base model. What I'm hoping I can do is, this is held in here by clips. It's a USB port for the upgraded factory radio. I'm hoping I can make this sit in there somehow, get it to work with my normal USB into my phone. Because that other truck had that sloppy install with that weird head unit amp, all these wires are cut, so I'm just going to have to splice them back together and it should work. And while I'm in there with the dash off, I'm going to put this button set in there. Came from another super cab, so it's got a passenger airbag and traction control off like mine has, but this came from an FX4, so that is a hill descent control button. I can plug that in, it'll be plug and play, but I have to turn that option on with the software, ForScan, in the computer. So nothing major, just a couple small things. This wiring I'm going to use uninsulated butt connectors like I usually do. You'll see in some of my other videos that it's a pretty good way to make a connection, and I got some heat shrink. So let's go ahead and start with this connector first. So this is the connector that goes into the factory harness, and it had a bunch of different splices with that weird amp. So I'm just going to take these. You can see there's a green here and a green here, a green and black, a green and black. I'm just going to strip them and put them together. Now with this thing, there's tabs in here for the factory USB cord to clip in. This kind of fits in there. The trick to keep that in there is to keep it from popping out when I plug in a USB cable, because you can see it just pops right out. So the question is, how do I do that without ruining it? It'll plug in just like that, like it came from the factory, which would be nice. This will be useless though, that's not plugged into anything. But you can see if it's just plugged in there, it's a tight, kind of a tight fit, and it just pops it out. So, best way to put that in there, I don't know. Super glue, JB weld. I don't want to make it too permanent because this cable plugs into the back of this thing, and I don't know if I'm going to like this or not because I'm not really an audio guy. I don't like screens, and I want to sell this on eBay if I don't like this setup. Now this has a screw here. I might be able to, I don't know how this is plugged in here. There's small screws. I might pop this panel off and see if it's soldered in or plugged in. But if I could take that and fish that through this hole, it would keep it kind of in place. It'd look not as nice, but when you plug it in, it would butt up against that and it wouldn't just pop through. That's an option. Some of this is already hooked up. This looks like some sort of power and or ground. I mentioned it in other videos, this is a cheap wire stripper. You can see how it kind of works here. Works real nice for putting those insulated butt connectors on and crimping them on with this channel lock 909. And these are just cheap Amazon connectors. They come uninsulated, 100 piece, 22 to 16 gauge. I think this was probably 10 bucks, who knows. I bought it a while ago and it's lasted me a while. So we're just gonna go, this here, I don't know what this is, but I'm gonna cut that out. And see how nice this is. There's lots of different styles of automatic wire strippers. This one's pretty quick. And I just realized, I never noticed this before, there's a cutter right there at the bottom. You can see it. So, first time I noticed that. I've mentioned in previous videos that I think this design is owned by, the patent is owned by one company, and they make this style for lots of different companies like Knipex and Capri. I saw this style at Harbor Freight the other day under the Pittsburgh brand, so they must, it's just different colors, but it's all the same. Just buy the cheapest one. You can tell on these pliers, insulated butt connectors up top, non-insulated down at the bottom. That's where you crimp them. Probably would be a little better to take less of this factory sheath off so there's not so much wire exposed. But heat shrink's going to cover that up, so. Don't forget to put your heat shrink tubing on before you start making these connections. Otherwise, you're going to have to cut everything off and redo it, or just use electrical tape, which is probably fine in this application, but it's not quite as clean. Alright, now the only thing to do is connect the same colors up and kind of hope for the best. I got most of these hooked up. They could have been routed better, but I think they'll work. Some of the stuff I don't know if I needed to do. Like this one is labeled steering wheel remote input. I don't have the controls on the steering wheel since mine's a base model. Some of these things are labeled on here. You can't really tell. But I just hooked up the colors. They're all pretty much the same. The only thing that's different is this antenna connection. That's blue and white, and on here it's just blue, but guess we'll find out. It's either going to work or it's not. Well, it's not pretty, but that ought to work. There's a lot of different features for this thing that I am not going to use because like I said, I'm not really into this audio stuff, but I do want the maps, and it'd be nice to listen to podcasts or audiobooks. I don't know what these little brackets are. It looks like it might be broken somehow, but it was in the same style truck, so it should fit. Let's get that dash out and the old radio and see if we can make this work. To get this radio out, there's 4 bolts. This fascia has to come off. It's clipped in up here, but held in by bolts underneath here. Seven millimeter. Same over here. All this stuff's plugged in back here, but we're after more 7 millimeter bolts here. You got your plug and your antenna, and that's really all there is to it. It's powering up. That's a good sign. Okay. I don't have a backup camera for this, although I could put one in. Okay. Well, it looks like it works. All right, I'm gonna have to figure out all these things, but it's the touch screen seems to work. It's more responsive than I expected. I thought this was going to be kind of slow, given how old this was. And it does have buttons here, which I like, especially the power or the volume button. That's good. Okay, I'm happy with that so far. One of these buttons must turn it off, right? Oh, there. Press and hold, I assume. Yeah, okay. Well, so far so good. Now we're going to try and figure the routing, this USB cord, and put in these buttons. You can see I have the passenger airbag off because I think that's what you should do with the dog in the passenger seat. He rides up shotgun with me all the time. Let's see if we can get this squared away. Okay, I discovered the first problem. In each of these mounts, there should be these little plastic spacer things. That keeps it spaced out enough to be flush with the fascia and keeps it properly installed. I am missing one of these, and these screws are no longer long enough. And I remember keeping the screws for it, but I think I threw them out, and trash was picked up day before yesterday. So figure out a spacer situation and longer screw with that thread pitch. Looking around this table, I did find 3 of the 4 self-tappers that guy used to install that thing, so 3 out of 4 might be alright. The spacers, I'm still missing that. I found the microphone, which I'm not going to install because I'm not going to use it. And I did find this, I forgot that was in there. This is a little connector. Instead of using this, he had the blank. He put a circle in there and clipped that in there. So that was kind of about as clean as you can get. I don't know if I can use this in conjunction with this without modifying it, which I'd like to keep it like this if possible, but that's another option. I found this screw here, which holds the door panel, part of the door panel on that car, Land Rover, and by a stroke of luck I found this in the shop vac. So I have all the spacers and I have enough screws that should work. The thing this screws into is just a little tab. It was pushed down. It seems to be mounted. I think that'll work. Not the right way to do it, but you're not going to see that, and I don't really care, so. This is sitting nice and flush. It looks about as factory as you can get. That's my goal with any modification, which I don't like modifying too much. I want it to look as factory as possible. When dealing with bulbs, automotive bulbs especially, the natural body oils and grease from your hands can make these things burn out quicker than usual. So if you're going to change a bulb, get some gloves. Well, that works. You know what? This is not sealing without that gasket. There's too much space between the tab and the shoulder to seal on this without that gasket. Some sort of, I don't know if that's an O-ring, but it's completely degraded. I've got 2 O-rings here that I think will probably make this work. Just a note on adjusting mirrors, your side mirrors. This is all the way over because I was just in there. But what most people do is when they're sitting in the position of the seat, the driver's seat, they adjust it so the mirror goes straight down the side of the truck. And that's what you would think is the proper way to do it. Instead of adjusting the mirror like this going through the side of the truck, you want to put your head all the way against the glass and then adjust it so it's straight down the side of the truck. Now from here, it looks like it's too far out. But what happens is the car behind you comes up through your rear view mirror, and as soon as it leaves your rear view mirror, it immediately enters into your side view mirror. And then as it comes up, you can see it out of the side of your eyes. That's the proper way to adjust a mirror. If you have it set the first way, if from here rather than here, as soon as the vehicle behind you gets out of your rear view mirror, there's a gap, a blind spot, and you can't see it. And that's dangerous, especially if you're towing. So adjusting your mirror like this is the proper way to do it. It takes a little while to get used to it because it looks like it's way too far out. And the other side mirror, to get it just adjusted properly, do the same thing. Stick your head all the way into the center of the center console and adjust it like you would. I don't know if that's going to make sense, but that's the proper way to do it.